to my channel. So in this video I'm going to be sharing my experience of A-level chemistry. So just as a bit of background information, I did maths, chemistry, physics and AS further maths for my A-levels, and I will be going to study chemistry at uni in October, so my views of chemistry might be a little bit biased. One of the main reasons I wanted to make this video was because before I started A-levels I heard a lot of negative things about A-level chemistry, to the point where I nearly didn't take it, and I'm so glad I did because, as I said, I'm going to do chemistry at uni and I think it is a really cool subject to do. I'd also say that I personally found it the easiest. I found it the most instinctive almost, in that it required the least work. I know a lot of people would disagree with me with that, but that's one thing to bear in mind when you consider your A-levels, is you need subjects that you're prepared to put the work in, and you can't consider an easy subject because at A-level every subject's going to require a lot of effort. It will vary from subject to subject because you will find some easier than others, but you can't predict that in advance. So in regards to my advice, if you do want to take A-level chemistry, sorry, I've got my iPad down here, hence I'm looking down, I'm not just sort of staring at the floor awkwardly. Well, as with every other subject, the main thing with A-levels is keep on top of it as you go along, going back to the topics you've finished after you've done them, making sure you understand things as soon as you can, because I guess like all other, well, definitely STEM subjects, and I'm sure some others, it very much builds up on itself. So if there's something you don't understand in the first term of year 12, it may well come back to bite you later on, even in year 13. So yeah, just make sure that you keep on top of things as you go, and try and learn things as you go along as well, because again, as STEM subjects go, there isn't a lot to learn, but it's one of those things where if you don't know something, something else might not make sense, and you won't realise that that's why it doesn't make sense. I'm not sure what I just said made any sense at all, but if you study chemistry, you'll know what I mean, that understanding a previous topic might make the next one make so much more sense, despite the fact there isn't a massively obvious link. So in chemistry there are a few easy marks, and one of my main tips would be to make sure that you get those in the bags. That would be your definitions, your mechanisms, that sort of thing, and just memorise them, again, as you go along, so you don't have to do them all at the end while you're also trying to get your head around the more difficult concepts. So yeah, mechanisms and definitions, just make sure you're on top of those from the beginning. On the subject of easy marks, the easiest thing to forget, and I have to say I did this definitely throughout year 12, is make sure that you learn your required practicals, because they do come up. They were my least favourite thing in chemistry, the practical questions, having to learn those, but you really need to do it. And again, they're often quite regurgitatey, and if you know them well, they're quite easy marks. So again, just make sure you learn your practicals. Again, best way to do it is as you go along, because if you're like me and you hate learning things about practicals, then doing it little and often is much better than realising you have an entire 2 years worth of practicals to learn before your mocks. On a slightly different note, again, I guess as with most other STEM subjects, I'm just talking about STEM because those are the subjects I did, your understanding is much more important than memorising everything. So what I like to do was, I've talked about this in how I make my revision notes video, but I made these really summarised notes which just made sure that I understood everything. And my main way of checking that I really understood it is I would have these in front of me and I would try and expand them like I was explaining it to someone else, because I'm sure you've heard that you should be able to explain things really clearly. Was it to a 6-year-old or something? You should be explaining, if you can't explain something to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it properly. It's something like that anyway. But yeah, I would take these notes, go through them and then explain it out loud to make sure that it all makes sense. Although if you can get a person who is willing to be explained A-level chemistry, that's even better, because they can then criticise you on anything that doesn't make sense. And yeah, if you've watched any type of video like this before, then I'm sure you will have heard, but practice questions are absolutely key for chemistry. It just gets you practicing using all of these skills, getting the way of thinking, any math skills you might need. Make sure that you have got that maths, because although chemistry isn't a massively mathsy subject, you need a few bits which aren't in A-level maths. If you don't do A-level maths, make sure you get grips of logs and that sort of thing. But yeah, just practice, practice, practice. Do old specification questions as well. I know there aren't that many new ones yet. I used physics and maths tutor a lot for topic-based questions. Textbooks, just, yeah, practice absolutely as much as you can. Again, I'm sure this goes for all subjects, but make sure to ask if you need it. Chemistry isn't an easy subject. No one will find it easy the whole way through. But on sort of the flip side, also make sure you don't ask too quickly. It's one of the things I found made me understand things much better is if I had to come up with it from first principles. So yes, ask if you've been trying to do something for absolutely ages, but also just make sure you think about it. If you can't do a question, don't instantly go text your friend and go, hey, have you done question 5? Or don't instantly go to your teacher, I can't do my homework. Try and just look at it, think about it, and see if you can link it to anything else that you do understand, because figuring things out from first principles is so helpful just to get in that way of thinking, because that's what you need to do in exams. If, like me, you want to do chemistry at a uni that maybe has interviews, that's exactly the sort of thing that they'll be looking for, is testing how you can figure things out from the basics in topics that you don't understand. So it's a really, really good skill to develop. On a similar sort of note, again, this is more relevant if you're thinking of doing a chemistry subject at uni, but reading around it can make things make a lot more sense. Getting some extra detail, it can just make things fit together a lot better. And although it seems like a lot of extra work, I promise it will make things make more sense in the long run, and it will just be really, really helpful for your general chemistry knowledge. I feel like I've repeated myself a lot in this video, so I apologise if things don't make a lot of sense. But I hope you found it helpful anyway. If you have any questions about A-level chemistry, feel free to leave them in the comments below or DM me on Instagram. And I hope to see you soon. Bye!